This is the news you can use, and we got a lot going on, so let's get right into it.
A one-year window to file civil action regardless of the statute of limitations. That was somewhat of a groundbreaking law in New York passed to allow those
Let's get right
victims
into
of sexual
it.
abuse and sexual assault to file their claims no matter what, that the statute of limitations had expired. So I'm only saying this because I think it's important to let you know what has been going on with some of the claims levied against Diddy over the last 3 to 4 months. Fast forward to today, March the 25th, Monday. We get word from Fox 11 in Los Angeles that something is going on at a very large mansion in the Holmby Hills section of Los Angeles. We do our digging. We hear from Fox 11. This is a residence affiliated with Diddy, the media and music mogul. Then, 30 minutes later, we find out live happening in Miami, investigators are doing the very same thing across the country. And what we are told, Fox 11 Los Angeles, saying this is a investigation, federal one at that, into sex trafficking. In the meanwhile here, like I said, we are bringing on some of our experts, legal analysts, law enforcement experts who know a thing or two about these probes, who know a thing or two about these investigations and how these raids are carried out. We're going to keep the live pictures up. We're going to hear some of these voices, though, right now, including our friend, attorney and expert, Nicole DeBoard,
So
who has been following this as well. She joins me. Nicole,
rated
happy Monday. Good to see you. What a major development.
2 different
in
houses,
such a
LA
story.
and Miami.
I know Diddy has been going on with some of these legal sagas.
Let's switch to Miami real quick. This is Homeland Security. This is live. It's Homeland Security in Miami. So they hitting everywhere. It's crazy. Let's switch over. The house is being raided. Miami and
to get a judge to sign off on a warrant, because you can see there by looking at the screen yourself. I mean, this is a very invasive process. They're going into the home of an individual, and there has to be reason enough to believe that what they're looking for is going to be in that home. And they have to secure all of the individuals walking around in that home or detain them to make sure that they don't dispose of evidence. Or move evidence or do something to potentially damage the investigation. So it may not be that everyone in that home is a suspect. It could be that everyone in the home is a suspect, or it could be some combination.
Okay, that makes sense. We're getting some reporting in from our friend Megan Cuniff. She's a legal affairs journalist in Los Angeles. She says this, and if we could go back to the one about the jurisdiction, because I think the jurisdiction is really, really important. It might not necessarily be that, prosecutors in LA or Miami are bringing this. This could be somewhere else, and they could have asked the, local state law enforcement to conduct this. Megan Cuniff says this, Nicole: Diddy's home is being raided in Los Angeles, but I've confirmed with the U.S. Attorney's Office the case is not out of LA's Central District of California. And Megan says the Southern District of New York is most likely. Now, that would track with the statement Fox 11 Los Angeles reporter Haley Winslow on the scene got from Homeland Security investigators from New York. So that would potentially lead us to believe that this could be coming out of New York. That's where the nucleus of the investigation is, so to speak. I don't want to say that's confirmed, but that's what we're somewhat hearing.
Nah, he wasn't arrested.
That's absolutely possible.
So
and it's possible that even though there's not maybe a federal investigation going on in the California district or even in Miami, they have given a judge enough information to believe that it is reasonable to expect that evidence of the crime being prosecuted or investigated in New York is at these two locations. That's what they would have to show the judge in order to get the warrant. And it could be that maybe not now, they're not looking at a particular charge in either of these districts in Florida or in California, but really it depends on what they find here. Right now, they believe evidence of a crime committed in New York is to be found at the location in Los Angeles and Miami. It's possible that what they uncover could lead them to believe that also there was a potential crime in those jurisdictions, and they would not be foreclosed from being able to investigate those crimes, even though that's not what the warrant initially set out to find.
So is it customary for where the warrants are served, you would make the leap that the crimes were committed in these places, correct? That's safe to say, the alleged crimes, so to speak. That's why the raids are being held as we speak.
Not necessarily. It could be that they believe evidence of those crimes can be found in those locations. So in other words, it could be a crime they believe occurred in New York, but they have reason to believe, and it's strong enough information that they were able to get a judge to sign off on a warrant to indicate that evidence of the crime that is being investigated in New York can be found in Los Angeles or Miami. So it's not necessarily so that they believe the crime itself happened in either Los Angeles or Miami, although it could evolve that later turns out to be the case.
You know, Nicole, like I said, you have a lot of experience in prosecuting these cases. But we are watching federal agents raid 2 mansions, thousands of square feet, multiple acres. That's a lot of ground to cover. There are going to be, you could imagine, thousands of pieces of evidence. I mean, these are large properties here.
That's completely true. And I've had an opportunity to defend quite a few of these cases, and these cases are indeed complex. Not only do you have an instance where you have just the idea that these cases can have terabytes and terabytes of information, which are later produced to the defense team, but you have 2 locations now that are just very large where they're gathering this information from. So I can expect whoever is ultimately representing Mr. Diddy to Mr. Combs to have to sift through incredible amounts of physical and digital evidence just to try to find out exactly what these accusations are about.
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like Sky Fox there in Los Angeles is going to be flying away. We still have our live picture, though, in Miami as well. What's the coordination and cooperation like now that this is looking like a bi-coastal operation and investigation? How hard is it, Nicole, to get everyone on the same page, to get everyone on board with this is what we're looking for, this, you know, maybe who we need to question, who we need to detain? Is that a very heavy lift, so to speak?
It is a heavy lift, and you can imagine that there were hours and hours of planning that went into the execution, right down to who would be involved on each team, because it has to be something that is not leaked. It is coordinated as to timing, and you have 2 completely different time zones. And so you want to make sure that every person on each of those teams is going in at the same time, because you don't want whoever you're trying to investigate to learn that you're looking for documents in one location, because they could quickly secrete them or hide them, destroy them in the secondary location. So this has to happen at the same time. It also is best if it happens at the same time, because you don't want witnesses talking to each other about what the other one said before law enforcement has an opportunity to talk to these folks. So it is a very heavy lift. It takes a lot of coordination, and you want to make sure that everyone on the team knows what their role is and what they're supposed to be doing and not supposed to be doing.
Okay, so we're taking a live picture right now, Nicole, there in Miami at the residence, one of the residences of Diddy there. I want to show for the viewers that we're going to bring you on camera here, Nicole. We want to thank you for being with us. We're going to keep you around for just a little bit longer because this is a developing story, a breaking story at the moment. We're going to get back to that live picture in just a moment. I want to show our viewers and take them back about how we even came to be familiar and acquainted with this story. We were watching this on one of our feeds, about an hour ago now, and we were watching agents raid a home, so to speak. We have that moment. I want to get you to respond to that moment. This is it here. So take a look at this. All right. You see there so many of these agents. They're trying to break down one of these front doors, or at least gain access to it. And so, presumably, you know, this is what they train for. This is how they go about this. Do they have to do this in every raid, so to speak? You know, if you're not getting pushback or opposition, or there's no danger posed from any of the individuals in the house, why do they have to have such manpower like this?
Well, it does not mean that they believe that there's danger involved, but you can see that these officers are not taking anything for granted. They're there in uniform. They're clearly identifiable as law enforcement. They have what appears to be bulletproof vests on just in case something goes wrong. They have a certain lineup. They know in that stack, if you will, person who is going to be in front, all the way down to the person who is going to be at the back. They know who's responsible for breaching the doorway. And it's not the kind of thing you can see. There's such a difference all the way from where the gate to that property that we're looking at now is all the way to the front door of the actual residence. There's some time. So what law enforcement does not typically want to do is ring the doorbell and have a little chat with whoever's on the inside of the house. so that if somebody has a flash drive or something that they might want to flush down the toilet or otherwise remove from the residence or somehow hide, they have time to deal with it. These law enforcement officers have a plan, and they're executing a plan where they also want the element of surprise to be on their side.
Oh, I see. Okay, that makes sense. You know, being in the news, I think the last kind of federal raid in the public consciousness was the raid at Mar-a-Lago in South Florida back in August of 2022. And we saw that kind of all unfold as well. Of course, I'm not comparing these two situations or scenes by any means, but these were essentially, Nicole, raids that we all watched in real time. And so I think a lot of the American people and viewers became pretty well acquainted with how law enforcement does this. Now, let's talk about the probe itself. We're getting that from our sources at Fox 11, that this is an investigation regarding allegations of sex trafficking federally. Now, is that federal aspect important to this? Obviously, states have their own laws on the books when it comes to sex trafficking. But if the feds are looking into this
is
into
crazy.
homes associated with such a high-profile person, you just have to kind of make the leap that this is going to be a story for a very long time. What is so particular about the federal aspect of this?
This is crazy.
Again, it's very likely that it is federal because they believe there was some element of crossing state lines with some of the conduct. And again, without seeing the warrant, if we don't see the warrant, we can't see the affidavit. We don't know exactly what the government is alleging occurred here. We're taking a guess based on some civil lawsuit information that this is probably what this is about. It's clearly a criminal investigation at this point because you see this law enforcement individuals making entry and conducting this search warrant at a minimum. We don't know if it's also an arrest warrant. And so it has to be that there's some interstate commerce or some crossing of state lines that was affected to make this a federal case. And the reality is that even though a person may have a peaceful reputation, I know nothing about Mr. Combs' reputation. Law enforcement needs to go in as if the situation could turn violent at any time, because these types of allegations are incredibly serious. Somebody who is ultimately arrested for human trafficking could very well, depending on the charges, go to prison for the rest of their lives. And that's a desperate corner for individuals to be in, and even people who might otherwise not have had a history of any sort of violent reaction. Law enforcement has to be prepared for the unexpected. And so that's what you're seeing here.
You know, Nicole, I was using some of the history and context of what Diddy has gone through over the last 3 months to kind of bring into this story a little bit. And, you know, we don't want to jump to conclusions or you know, draw connections that aren't there. But he has suffered a lot of legal drama, so to speak, over the last 3 months, you know, almost like weekly, allegations being made, lawsuits being filed against him for allegations, Nicole, that go back to the early to late 90s. And we mentioned that a lot of states now have some of these laws on the books where they open a window of time, say a year, and victims can come forward no matter the statute of limitations. Do you think we could possibly be seeing that be taken advantage of, any laws like that in a case like this?
Well, it depends on if the government believes that there was some kind of a conspiracy to continue with human trafficking, or essentially to bring people into compelled prostitution. If they believe that there is an ongoing conspiracy, for example, among people to do this, you know, and there's evidence at either of these Combs residents of that thing that they're accusing them of over the long term, it can tack back in time that way. So in other words, if, you know, the conspiracy they're alleging is still ongoing this last year, and I don't know what they're alleging, because again, we haven't seen any documentation of that, but they could say, well, it's the same conspiracy that's been ongoing for 20 plus years. And so, you know, that would mean that potentially, although there would definitely be arguments in court, that they could say, well, this is the same conspiracy. It was going on as of yesterday. And for that reason, we believe that we are going to be able to continue to prosecute no matter how old some of the initial complainants in the conspiracy were at the time. So those could be 20 years old. I mean, these cases are incredibly burdensome for a defense team. They're expensive, they're enormously stressful. I mean, if you can imagine also, he's presumed innocent. It is presumed that he's done absolutely nothing wrong, which is really a hard thing for us to imagine watching what we're watching right now on camera. And for a defendant accused in a case of this nature, especially with so much time potentially being at issue for witnesses to make claims, it's almost like having to prove a negative that it didn't happen, even though that's not what our Constitution or criminal court rules require.
So, of course, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but you are saying the very fact that these homes affiliated with Diddy are being raided in this fashion, it would be hard to, down the line, you would be surprised, so to speak, if Diddy wasn't somewhat implicated in that. That's what my line of questioning is to you. How likely is it that a family member, an employee, a staffer on the grounds, or so to speak, that they are involved primarily, and that the homes just so happen to be owned by Sean Diddy Combs? Is that unlikely or likely in your history?
Just the fact that they're his residences that does bring concern that they believe anyway that evidence of a serious federal crime is located in Combs's home, which leads one to believe that at a minimum they think that potentially there is some involvement. I mean, his home is involved because they got a judge to sign off on a warrant saying evidence of this serious crime is in it.
Sure.
So he's got a battle ahead.
Yeah. I'm going to step away right now from these live pictures. Nicole, I want to get your thoughts on this piece of video from how this all kicked off here. Okay, so you see there, this is in the Holmby Hills neighborhood there in Los Angeles. Investigators detained someone, Nicole, and you see this right here. This is video. This is not live. This is from earlier. And I guess my question to you is, what comes first, kind of the chicken or the egg, the indictment or the raid, or the indictment? Which comes first? Because you see there, they're detaining people on the ground. This was maybe an hour ago. No doubt they're going to be questioned, possibly booked. Not sure if they're going to be charged. We just don't know any of that. But presumably one has to happen for the other, right?
Believe it or not, it doesn't. They can actually they can execute a search warrant without charges being filed based on essentially a criminal complaint. So, no indictment in that instance. And sometimes they indict a case and they don't have everybody that they think is responsible listed in that indictment, or the grand jury hasn't indicted everybody who they think is a part of the case. And so, just because you're seeing people on TV right now who are, being arrested, searched, handcuffed, detained, set aside, doesn't mean that they're criminal defendants or criminal suspects. It could very well be that those are witnesses that were watching them secure. Okay. So there's no way to know yet, who is being charged, if there has been a charge. And sometimes indictments have been issued but are sealed and have to be unsealed by a federal judge so that we know what are the charges.
Yeah. All right. Let's go back out live to the pictures we have there, both in Los Angeles and in Miami. Nicole DeBoard with us here on the phone. Can't thank you enough. This has been really invaluable for helping us make sense of this. But if you're Diddy's legal team right now, they've been working overtime for the last, 3-4 months in unrelated cases. Now I would imagine that, their year has gotten so much more difficult. What lies ahead for them? How much harder is their job going to be, depending on whatever the charges are, whoever the defendants may be going forward?
They're just going to have a massive amount of information to sift through. And that's if the government gives it to them. So the government first is going to get all of this information. And this can get really complicated for the legal team. So, up until this morning, when all of these raids started, the legal team had access to, if they wanted to go to Mr. Combs and say, I would like to see what you have on this computer. He could go to his computer and he could get it. Well, you can bet that all of those items are going to be removed from these residences. And so now they're not accessible to the legal team until the government turns it over and the agents turn it over for review and for discovery. And that can take a while. So when the government takes possession of all the materials that you're using to try to understand allegations like this, the burden is just incredible. So it's going to take a ton of time for these lawyers and their legal teams to sift through this information and to try to calculate what they're even missing. You know, what did the government take that we need access to make sure that Mr. Combs gets due process, if that's in fact what happens, that he's charged at all in these allegations.
Yeah, and Nicole, like I said, we can't thank you enough. But these are really incredible scenes that we are seeing. You know, not just one, but two federal raids happening in real time as we speak. So I think that is, you know, somewhat significant in the nature of this story and the possible high-profile would-be defendant. And you see there in Los Angeles, look at all of those investigators going up the driveway there in the mansion. And so we'll just have to wait and see, but hopefully we'll get some type of statement from Sean Combs, from his legal team, from his representatives there. But you can see there, Nicole, kind of a large mass of these investigators walking into the driveway and going into the home right there as well. You know, depending, and we were talking about this kind of, but, you know, these homes are massive. So would you presume that these raids, these searches, I mean, they're going to go on for hours? You can make that.
They're going to go for possibly days.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
The reality is that they need to, you know, open every drawer. I mean, they're looking for things most likely like could be thumb drives, computer disks, documents, photographs. Anywhere that they can argue, anyway, as law enforcement, that items of that nature could be concealed, they have to look. And in a house like this, I would imagine there are many drawers, many cabinets, many closets, and potentially many electronic devices. They're going to be looking for phones. They're going to be looking for tablets. They're going to be looking for security footage. They're going to be looking for anything that might record data or receive an email or send a text. So there is just a ton of work ahead for these investigators.
All right, Nicole DeBoard, we can't thank you enough. And maybe we'll check in a little bit later or tomorrow, depending on how this story unfolds here. Nicole DeBoard, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, in the meantime here, we're going to stay with this story. We're also going to pivot to another major breaking news story that's been unfolding there in the Los Angeles area over the course of the last few days. I want to put this shot up here. You see there, you can see the Dodgers, the emblem, the logo on the back of those two chairs. We're about to get a statement in about 5 minutes time, at least that's when it's been scheduled, from the MLB star and Dodgers star, new Dodgers star, Shohei Ohtani, over these allegations in this betting scandal that has really rocked the sports world and rocked the MLB over the course of the last 3 or 4 days. So we're going to be bringing in my colleague here, Andy Mack. You're going to be hearing from Ohtani here at this scheduled press conference. We'll see how long it is. We'll see whether or not he takes questions. And then we'll be kind of diving into the particulars of the case itself. How did this all get started? We'll have that and more in 2 minutes. And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. Thanks for being with us on a busy Monday. Hope you had a good weekend. Let's get more into these top stories. Of course, we still have our eye on what's happening there at the Holmby Hills mansion of Sean Diddy Combs. This is a live picture right there. You can see many of his luxury vehicles parked in the driveway as some of these federal investigators raid and pour over these homes, not only in Los Angeles, but also in Miami. And what we are told is an ongoing federal sex trafficking investigation. That's about all we know at this hour. It's a story we have to stay on top of as well. Staying in Los Angeles for our next story as well. Take a look at this shot that we have right here. We are about to hear from LA Dodgers star Shohei Ohtani. He's set to make his first public comments today since his former interpreter, Ipe Mitsuhara, was fired following allegations of illegal gambling and theft from the LA Dodgers star. So in the newsroom here, I have my colleague, Andy Mack. It does look like we have Shohei Ohtani sitting down. Let's listen.
Okay, guys, thanks everybody for coming. I want to point out Shohei's interpreter is Will Ireton, Willireton. We'd ask that you not film this right now on your cell phone if that's possible. And after Shohei is done, we will not continue questions. Thanks.
まず皆さん、来ていただいてありがとうございます。僕も話したかったので、嬉しく思ってますし、チームの関係者の皆さん、僕自身もそうですけど、ファンの皆さんもここ1週間くらいですかね、厳しい、1週間だと思うんですけども、メディアの皆さんも含めて、我慢と、ご理解をしていただいたのはすごくありがたいなと、思っています。まず、僕自身も信頼していた方の、過ちというのを、悲しくというか、ショックですし、今はそういうふうに、感じています。
Well, first of all, thank you very much for coming. I wanted to be here today to be able to talk. I'm sure it was very tough. It's been a tough week for fans and team officials, and I'm very grateful that the media has been patient in this process. Just on a personal note, I'm very saddened and shocked that someone who I'm trusted has done this.
現在進行中の調査もありますので、今日話せることにまず限りがあるというのもご理解いただきたいなということと、また今日ここに、詳細をまとめた分かりやすく皆さんにお伝えするためにまとめた、メモがありますので、そちらの方に従って、何があったのかというのをまず、説明させていただきたいなと思います。
Well, obviously today there's things that I'm limited in being able to talk about. I hope you understand. I do have a document in front of me that I will refer to that will detail what has happened.
まずはじめに、僕自身は、何かにかけたりとか、誰かに代わって、そのスポーツイベントにかけたりとか、それをまた頼んだり、っていうことはないですし、僕の口座からブックメーカーに対して、誰かに送金を依頼したことももちろん全く。
All right, we out, man.